Coming up next on Tech News Today, Comcast and AT&T vow to not sell your browser history. Also, Twitter eggs go the way of the dodo bird, how 911 was susceptible to cyber attack by iPhone before Apple's most recent security update. Sam Machkovech has some choice words about the new Ghost in the Shell film, and we learn how to say Minnesotan. All that and more coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit. Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1737, recorded Friday, March 31st, 2017.
Hello and welcome to Tech News Today. This is the show where we tell you every last thing you need to know about technology, and then some. I'm Megan Maroney.
I'm Jason Howell. I'm curious what the and then some is going to be today.
I am also curious.
Because, I mean, we pretty much wrote a show around technology, but every once in a while we dance outside those lines.
Well,
that constitutes the and then some.
Well, what I meant.
Okay.
Let's parse
this.
Okay,
back it up.
What I meant. Let's back it up. Let's take a step back. What I meant was everything you need to know, and then some other stuff you don't need to know.
Oh. Well, we're very good at that.
Also about technology.
We're professionals in telling you what you don't need to know.
All right.
Let's do that.
Reuters reports that Comcast and AT&T claim that despite the House and Senate's votes against the broadband privacy rules, overturning those rules, they will not sell customers individual internet browsing information. The they meaning Comcast and AT&T. Comcast and AT&T say the descriptions of how they would use your personal information have been greatly exaggerated. In a blog post on its website, Comcast says they've always cared about its customers' privacy, and they always will. Also, they said they would be there to set up your service between the hours of 8 a.m. and noon, and they will show up at 12:15.
Yeah, that sounds pretty familiar.
So this was several blog posts. Yes, I'm sure some people went overboard in their description of what they have the capacity to do. But the truth is that Comcast has their own advertising network. So they don't have to sell our stuff to advertising networks, to other advertising networks, because they have their own. So, yeah, what do you think?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's exactly right. I'm a Comcast subscriber. And, I mean, on one hand, that's comforting because you're right. They have their own ad network. Why would they sell off their market advantage, which is what they would be doing there? On the other hand, they and other ISPs, big name ISPs like AT&T and others, have lobbied for years for stuff like this. And they do that for a reason. I mean, there's freedom there. Maybe they just want to work with less, interruption or less enforcement over the top of what they're doing and have the ultimate freedom. So I believe them when they say they're not doing it and that they don't plan to do it. But I would just also say that, keep an eye on terms of service, because terms of service can always change, and they might change at a time where the issue is not so like there isn't a bunch of spotlights being shined on it. Right now, this is where they're at. That doesn't say that they couldn't change their practices down the line, and I think it's still a very valid fear, something to be concerned with.
Yeah,
but I'm happy to hear them say that about now because I'm a subscriber now, and yay for right now, I guess.
Right. They also say you can always opt out.
Yeah.
And you showed how
that was fun.
Difficult that was. Yeah. Like, it's just a lot of steps, and you have to opt out each individual advertising network, and you got caught in a bunch of infinite loops. It's it's just like being on hold forever. Like, you just sometimes feel like that they do that on purpose just to make you hang up.
It really does seem that way. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to take a day off of work or two, just to like dedicate the time that you need in order to tackle it and complete it. So often, like I start something like that, I'm like, I'm totally going to do this. And then I get 20 minutes in, and I'm so overwhelmed by the complexity of it, and it just seems so self-defeating that you end up giving up. It's like you need time to focus on it. So yeah, opt out when possible. Also ensuring that HTTPS is being used when you're going to sites when possible. If you're not using a VPN, because then at least all they get for their marketing is your DNS record, the fact that you hit the site, but not what you actually did while you were there. And then if none of that, good VPN. hopefully a VPN you can trust. That's a challenge right there in and of itself for the same reason that we're talking about here. The Twitter egg has long been the default avatar when a user chooses no picture to put in its place. And as such, it's become synonymous for trollish accounts over time, burner accounts, as it were, where would-be trolls quickly set up a new Twitter account to go on a tirade against those they love to hate for everyone to see. Now, Twitter is doing away with the egg and replacing it with a rather dull silhouetted head. But that dullness apparently has a purpose to actually motivate Twitter users to realize that they should replace it with something else. Because even though these eggs were appearing, I think they'd been with the egg in one form or another for like the past 6 years or so. They were still, vibrant, colorful, different backgrounds. I mean, it was the kind of avatar that you could look at and it would be an avatar that some people would actually choose. You know what I mean? So it was easy to just go with it. Maybe the new one is so dull, you can't help but replace it.
Well, that was a lot of people didn't realize that it was the default avatar. I mean, you always saw tweets that were just like, what's an egg? Like, oh, why do so many people have profile pictures of eggs?
What are they protesting? What does the egg protest mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, what I find interesting about this is that, I mean, that's that gray box, like sort of, person, genderless person, gray on gray, is both dull and also what I think we're all now accepting as the universal symbol for no profile
Yeah,
picture.
I've seen it on a lot of other services like that too.
Yeah, so I think it's good of Twitter to catch up to where other people are and have been. Harry McCracken's piece about this in Fast Company was really interesting. Like the evolution of where they came from. It was at one point a silhouette of a man with an umbrella and a briefcase in the clouds.
Yeah, I remember that.
There he is. I asked Harry on Twitter if that wasn't Mary Poppins. Like, how did he know it wasn't Mary Poppins? And Harry, the wise man that he is, responded, because Mary Poppins doesn't fly without her umbrella open, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a good point.
It can't be Mary Poppins.
Yeah. I do remember that. Yeah, they've definitely upgraded the images over time. So I don't know. Like, on one hand, I feel like it kind of strips away a little bit of Twitter's personality. Like, Twitter for the longest time had kind of a, when you'd reach the 404 page on Twitter, for the longest time, it was the bird, the dolphin. Was
the fail whale?
The fail whale, that's right.
Not a mammal.
Flown away with, a bunch of little birds kind of carrying it along. Had kind of like a whimsical quality to it. And we're losing that over time, but it's kind of fitting, right? Like, Twitter has had a lot of issues in the past couple of years, kind of forced to rethink that stuff in light of, a lot of abuse happening on the network, kind of forced to grow into an adult, grow from a child into an adult and take itself a little bit more seriously. So maybe that's what this is all about.
Yeah, definitely read Harry's article, because he also goes into a long description about how to represent nothingness.
Oh.
So if you want to spend some time contemplating your own existence through the Twitter avatars, go read it.
That's how I like to spend my time.
The Wall Street Journal says that part of this week's iOS 10.3 update includes a fix for a flaw that would have allowed for a cyber attack against 911 centers. Back in October, an 18-year-old exploited the JavaScript flaw to remotely control iPhones and make them call 911, creating a DDoS attack of sorts that would prevent real emergency calls from coming through. The flaw has been patched, so go update your iPhone so you're no longer vulnerable. I don't remember this being reported back in October. I feel like we cover a lot of this, but it's a really interesting story about, just he says, the guy who found this flaw, he says he was trying to get the money for the bug bounty, but Apple has first of all, they just started paying people for bug bounties, and they only pay certain people. So, but I guess he put it somewhere, someone else put it on Twitter, a bunch of people spread it around. So anytime you clicked on this link, your iPhone would just call 911 again and again and again until you turned it off. Yes. And people had no idea. And it's a good look into like how not to click links that you don't know
Right.
what they're going to do. Because all these it was a lot of teenagers that were doing it, and they thought it was funny.
Right. It's
and
kind of a prank.
Yeah, but couldn't think past the idea like, oh, if all these phones are constantly calling 911, like something bad could happen if someone needed 911.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that in the deluge of calls that were tied to this, they don't know exactly how many calls came from this, but you know, in a call center where it would be super quiet, suddenly they had 40, 50, 100, 200 calls queued up at the same time. I mean, what does that do in a 911 center? That takes attention away from actual emergencies. And it's amazing that in all of this, they couldn't link to any deaths or serious injuries that resulted from the delays. So that's just kind of remarkable considering this was such a viral thing. But, you know, a big challenge were people that were using the link in kind of a Rickroll style to say like, you know, hey, check out my new hip hop playlist or whatever. And it would take, you know, and also the fact that if you loaded this on a desktop or an Android device, all that happened is you were redirected to a page that just said LOL.
Oh.
If you did it on an iPhone, you got the repeated calls to 911. So, and it really just it shows how susceptible our 911 system is to something that, quite frankly, seems like a pretty easy way to overwhelm something that is just so important to our infrastructure, you know,
and
protecting people.
Yeah, but 911 also isn't. I don't know that people depend on it as much as they. Well, I guess so many people don't have landlines, and I don't know if this is everywhere, but I know in Petaluma, like it depends on where you are. Like if you're it's slightly outside of the city and you dial 911 on your cell phone, you're not gonna, you're not gonna get 911. So, you know, I think that there is, now that so few people have landlines, it does seem like there needs to be some new emergency system.
Or they need to pay more attention to 911 and bring it up to a certain standard. What I find fascinating is that in a world where so many people are on cell phones now versus landlines, like when you're calling 911 from a landline, they instantly get location, they instantly get your name, they get all this information right away. But most of the time they don't get that if you're calling from a cell phone.
Right.
They get a general area and they don't get your name. And I'm just kind of amazed that like this is so critical. And this is information I think anyone would get behind the idea that, hey, let's do what we need to do to make sure that subscriber name or whatever is passed through to 911 if they call from their phone and you get an exact location or something along those lines. I have to imagine it's technically possible.
Right.
Make it happen because it's so important. So the Record Industry Association of America says that 2016 was its best year in almost 2 decades, thanks to a widespread adoption of music streaming services last year, and the last couple of years actually. But in 2016, that surpassed 50% of total annual revenue for the first time. Total retail sales rose 11.4% in its biggest gain since 1998, when compact discs reigned supreme, and then of course Napster was just starting to bubble up onto the scene to change the course of history for good and start us down this road to streaming services, which it's been a long time coming, but we're finally getting to the point to where music streaming, digital distribution and everything, I mean, people are much more willing now to spend money on these services, and that's also because, you know, we have the bandwidth to do it. The music catalogs are impressive enough to keep people happy with what they have there. I guess digital downloads sales were down 22% from 2015. So even more people interested in, you know, cloud access, less interested in ownership. And that's kind of what we're seeing, the general pattern.
Yeah, streaming was up 69% just from last year. 69% just from last year. And yet the RIAA still wants to complain about YouTube or other, you know, they're doing great. And, you know, the record industry is doing great. It's the best year, like you said, 2 decades. But they still want to keep playing that tiny violin about how they're not getting enough money.
Because they're always comparing it to a time when everybody, you know, a time where you had all of these years where everybody had to own all their music on vinyl, and then they got to rebuy all that music on cassette, and then they got to rebuy all that music on compact disc. And with compact disc, things went nutso, and they were making money hand over fist. Compact discs were like $20 a pop, and ownership was still a high priority. That's just not the world we live in now. With streaming and digital distribution, I mean, with streaming in general and streaming access to these services, ownership is kind of a novelty. It's not a necessity anymore. It's like if I have access to the music that I actually want, then I don't really need to own it. If I'm okay with that model and letting go. They still want to kind of hold on to the idea that, no, we made so much money when you were buying albums piece by piece, and you don't do that anymore. So we want more money from the streaming services because comparatively we're not making the same amount of money. And it's just, I think it's a different world. Although YouTube has a lot of unlicensed copyright music on there. They say that YouTube's paying like $1 for every 1,000 streams versus like $7 on other services for every 1,000 streams, and that YouTube could do better. So, and that's their general complaint there, is that it's the Digital Millennium Copyright Act is unfair, and YouTube profits off of that, benefits off of that. So.
Well, speaking of YouTube, some YouTubers have discovered what may or may not surprise you about the Galaxy S8's facial scanner. The facial recognition software is designed to let you unlock your phone with your face, but it appears to also work with a picture of your face. Google's Face Lock feature from 2011 was also fooled by a picture. So does this really surprise you?
No, not at all. I mean, if they're not doing some sort of, and I know that there have been phones that that have done this before, where they're actually doing more than just taking a straight image from your camera, where there's actually some sort of like depth detection. And I think if you integrate that, you might have a better system than just straight up taking from the camera. And I'm not really, to be honest, I'm not really quite sure exactly how Samsung is doing it here, but it seems like it's just straight up image matching, and facial detection of facial features and stuff like that. But you're going to get the same out of a picture that you would in real life, unless you have that kind of depth information in there.
Yeah. I mean, I think no one is saying that Samsung's phones are, the most secure out there. I think they're just saying this is faster. It's like just faster than even entering your thumbprint. You just hold it up to your face.
Right.
I think maybe they're just saying, rather than using nothing like this, this would be good. And I think, I don't know. And they might be able to change the software before April 21st, before like the first round comes out, or not.
Well, I mean, maybe they could change it to improve it, but I think if they were going to do that, they probably already would have. I think you nailed it. It's convenience over true security. It's like you can either be completely unprotected and it's really easy to get into your phone, or you can be super duper protected and it's going to take you a while. And this is somewhere kind of in the lower to mid range. You know what I mean? What I'm wondering is if at some point it would be really cool to get combined biometric security. Like fingerprint by itself is nice, but it has its flaws. A PIN is nice, but fingerprint's more convenient. What if we had like a two-factor solution where it's like, front feed from the camera for facial recognition paired with my fingerprint, and if both of those match, then I'm in. Then if somebody has my picture, they still don't get in. It's super easy to unlock my phone with my fingerprint, but you combine those two and you get that extra layer of security. And I wonder if at some point we're going to start seeing that. It makes sense that we would.
So the S8, does the S8 also have the iris scanning that the S7 had? But do you know if you can combine them?
I don't think that you can combine them yet. But I'm kind of surprised about that. The more I think about it, the more I think it makes sense for them to work in that direction. Maybe that requires, a better processor inside to do that quick enough for people to actually want to use it. Because that's the other challenge, right? Is you add in these features, but if they're super slow and it takes you a while to get into your phone, then people just are going to not use them.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, that's what, the update to, I think it was iOS 10 required, well, by default, it's 5 numbers or 6 numbers instead of the 4-digit PIN. But you can figure out how to change it back to the 4-digit PIN. And, I think it's good to sort of start to ease those like defaults, making it a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Like the other thing iOS did was that now as soon as you install the latest version, it reminds you that, it's a good idea to do 2-factor. So yeah, I think if you're working on these, if you're a developer working on these things, it must be just a constant, like, how far can we go giving people their broccoli or their spinach before they say,
How much salt should we put on that?
Exactly.
Or how much butter should we slather over the
ketchup
top
on
of
the
it?
broccoli.
Great.
That's
Now
what
I'm
we always
hungry.
say.
Thanks, Megan. We were just talking about security, and now I'm hungry. We're gonna talk about a film that I'm very curious about. A beloved anime film gets the long-awaited live-action Hollywood treatment, and Sam Machkovech from Ars Technica is here to tell us what he thinks. Welcome, Sam.
Hi. I'm so used to you guys every week. You guys are mixing me up with a protocol. I think what I need is like a person waving a flag.
Yeah, what we need to do, we need to get a trademarked Sam Machkovech like segment bumper where like you walk across the screen and then go and then it fades
it'd be nice if it went action.
Right, with a loud explosion, and that way if you're like eating or whatever, you can be like, and wipe your face off and be ready.
I'm actually not wearing pants. That is how unprepared I was for this call.
I didn't know that. You did that, but okay.
No pants.
All right,
so,
good. What I like about you, Sam, is that you're honest.
Well, I mean, it's about brutal honesty today, and I think that begins with my thoughts on a certain film that I think you were talking about. Ghost in the Shell, a property that has been around for some time, a manga that started, I can't remember the exact year, in the 80s. The film version, first one came out in 1995. There was a sequel. There was Standalone Complex, which was a follow-up series that all follows the story of a bunch of robotically augmented police from, I want to say, Section 9 is the name of the district in a kind of sort of Hong Kong future with a lot of interesting sci-fi concepts. So word hit the street that Scarlett Johansson was going to star in a live-action reboot of the series, and people were kind of concerned and wondering exactly how that would turn out. It's a problem. And here's the thing, though. If you've never heard of the series and you just walk on in and you hear, oh, Scarlett Johansson's wearing skin-tight clothing to look like she's a kind of naked robot lady and punches and kicks and shoots guns and does invisible camouflage jumping and things, you might go, yeah, that's fine. And as just a boring, unintelligent kind of sci-fi movie, sure. Problem being, Ghost in the Shell was a really interesting movie of its time because science fiction up until this point of the mid-90s tended to be pretty slow. You had Star Wars, which was more like a space opera, swashbuckling thing. But in terms of hard sci-fi, as we fans of Party Down might say, hard sci-fi. That's a whole other thing. But if you like your hard sci-fi, it tended to be slow. It wasn't these action blockbustery sort of things. Blade Runner, Alien. I mean, Aliens had shooting of things, but even that this was Ghost in the Shell was the first to really nail like exciting and actiony and also thoughtful and really looking at science and fiction and fact coming together. That has all been thrown in the trash. This is not just it could have just been a retread of the original Ghost in the Shell. Instead, I feel like I could ramble a while. I feel free to ask some questions here because Ghost in the Shell is one of these things that I think people have different experiences with.
Well, and I mean, you could go in a million different directions because the original the cartoon movie, from the early 90s, very stylized and like representing that in a live action format. You can either get it really right or really wrong, I have to imagine. I mean, there were some trade-offs made for the film version that were kind of glaring. Was there anything redeeming about kind of some of the different directions that they took it into?
I think the best thing you can say is that the CGI and staging and how it looked is pretty good. The invisibility cloak sort of stuff that Scarlett Johansson occasionally turns on while kicking butt looks quite good. The action sequences are fine in that, it's big budget. It's not like they B-movied this. There's certainly effort in it. But these are all sort of action scenes you've seen before because so many filmmakers saw Ghost in the Shell and sort of ran with it. Scarlett Johansson, she's perfectly fine in terms of acting. Pilo Asbeck, I don't know how to say that guy's name, but he is Bateau. He is the secondary cop, and he's got weird robo eyes installed in his head, and that looks cool. I mean, if you just hit the mute button and watch it, you'll be like, it's pretty cool. There's some cool effects. There's some cool scenery. But one of the biggest things they get wrong, and I didn't dig so much into this in my review because we're going to have a follow-up piece at Ars Technica from one of our even bigger Ghost in the Shell fans about the series, is that this fictional future world originally was a statement and commentary on the rapidly changing world of Hong Kong. That was a huge part of the film, a huge part of the original anime, or manga, pardon me, and totally thrown in the trash. I feel like all the Chinese investors in this film who put it together, of all the things they might have censored or said we don't really want in the movie, specific allusions to the grandeur and rise of Hong Kong might not have been high on their list. So I thought that was a really weird thing, that even if you were just trying to check it out, and it's just like, yeah, they just put a couple of hologram signs in the distance and says, it's future world, as opposed to, oh, right, this was actually a really interesting socio-political commentary on East Asian culture all over the place for that era.
So I know there were some censorship issues with the original manga of Ghost in the Shell, and sometimes manga can we think of cartoons in the United States, in the West, as being tamer than some manga. Do you think that this movie really captured the spirit of manga in general in terms of its matureness?
Oh, it's PG-13. There's violence and punching, but I think maturity is the thing that sci-fi can do, where the way it's hard for me to state it without sounding because there's just so much I thought it got wrong. But ultimately, the original series had a lot of nuance, had a lot of looking at how our rapidly changing world is affecting us and the blurred line between what is a person and what is a robot. A lot of these sort of subtle, it was on the surface, but it wasn't this like smack you over the head sort of thing about the concept of a soul, about the concept of autonomy. That's all gone here. It is all, you are told very explicitly about the word ghost meaning a soul. And that's like one of the first things you hear is about this main character, Major, who Scarlett Johansson plays, having the soul, and also about how her memories mean nothing. It's about her actions, not her memories. And that ends up being really weird because eventually we come to find out, no, she was actually a young Japanese girl before she was thrown into a robot body. And that is handled in a really awkward way that I think even if you want to sort of not care about accusations of caste whitewashing, if you want to accept that perhaps a white actor or actress can play the role just fine, they really slam into your face how little they care about original East Asian culture. When this woman, Scarlett, comes through eventually to replace the Japanese girl, go to her dead mom and be like, you don't have to be sad now. Like that, it's really weird. So I just think that calling it Ghost in the Shell and then throwing all of the sci-fi concepts in the garbage is just a really strange move. And in my review, I said it was really equivalent to a Gone with the Wind reboot in which Scarlett and Mammy went on like a buddy cop rampage. It's just like, it's such a strange, why use the license if you're going to do something that different? It doesn't make sense. Right. It's not like a bunch of people were like, oh yeah, Ghost in the Shell, I've been meaning to see that. They could have put a different title on it, gone a different way, but all of the stuff about Scarlett Johansson's character having all this sort of teenage angst was never in the original. All this revenge plot stuff wasn't in there at all. It's just a very strange mix-up of the manga and anime concepts all squished together, different episodes, different series, to essentially create an entirely new plot that had nothing to do with the original. So thumbs in the middle if you have never heard of this and you just want to see something stupid. Thumbs all the way down if you have any concept of what Ghost in the Shell is.
Oh, and they needed to appeal to the people. I think their goal was to appeal to the rabid fan base of the original, and if they failed on that, then that's a big fail.
No, if that was their goal, they could have copied any of the plot from the originals and had it make any sense.
That's true.
I don't know who the heck they were aiming for, but wasn't me, that's for sure.
All right. Well, maybe we can segue into eye candy that gets it right. The BBC's Planet Earth was a marvel to watch back in 2007 when HD TVs were still relatively unfueled with top-notch content. Now we have Planet Earth 2, and you call it, quote, need a new TV propaganda. That got my attention right there. Explain.
So Planet Earth 2 started broadcasting last year, much like the original Planet Earth started broadcasting on TV about a year before it came out on disc. And because this is a BBC production, there's not a ton of ways that you can watch it in the crispest detail possible. They're not on Netflix or Amazon, any of these streaming platforms that support essentially higher quality than you get from your average cable or satellite provider. So you're already, if you want to see a pure 1080p version of Planet Earth 2, you have to wait out for the normal Blu-ray. However, this is really the beginning of the 4K and HDR Blu-ray wave, and same formats for streaming. 4K has been a big buzzword for a lot of people, and I'm one of the first to tell you, meh. More resolution is often really hard to see when you're sitting on your couch. You're not slamming the TV right up to your face. There's a difference between shot blurry and shot nicely, but once you go from nicely to super nicely, it's a little harder to see. However, when you take all those extra pixels and you get all of the color information more accurate, more lifelike, and that's what HDR offers, or high dynamic range. I've talked about that a lot at Ars Technica lately. I started writing about it a lot last year. And essentially, it's jacking up the maximum brightness and maximum color gamut of every single pixel. Now, when you're quadrupling the number of pixels, when you go 4K, and you combine that with more color information, that's when you get an image to pop. Problem is, not a lot of stuff is shot in that format, not mastered in that format. So you could get a 4K HDR Blu-ray right now, and for the most part, it doesn't look quite that good. It was mastered for normal projectors, for normal TVs. All that being said, Planet Earth 2 is the first true 4K HDR Blu-ray set. As in, you can go to a store, get that set, then go back to your house where you have all your other expensive things, meaning your compatible TV and your compatible UHD Blu-ray player. A lot of stuff, kind of annoying, but nail all that stuff, combine it together, and you are not going to see sexier lemurs in your home. It's just not going to happen unless you have an incredible bait thing going on and you live in the right part of the world. That ain't happening. Planet Earth 2 absolutely gets the color information that is necessary to project these incredible sunsets, these sun-stricken grounds, the water, these ridiculous blues and greens and oranges, this like bright orange brown of dirt that you don't see on a television set. There's colors that just cannot be reproduced on a SDR TV, which is to say every 1080p television on the market. So if you've ponied up for one of these newer 4K TVs that has high dynamic range, which is to say HDR10, that's the name of the spec. If it's rated for UHD Blu-ray, then you'll be fine. Get that all together, slap it together. Do you really need to spend, $2,000 to $3,000 to see really good-looking pandas and iguanas and lizards? That's your call. That's how crazy you are. I will say I happen to have the whole setup. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. People have come over. Their jaws drop every time they come over to my house because of the TV, not because of anything else. But yeah, it's just there's nothing, because Planet Earth, the series, takes its sweet time, really, really is slow when it pans over stuff. So you really get to appreciate all that beautiful detail that they shoot on these incredible scenes.
Wow. So what TV do you have? I'm very curious.
Why? Do you want to come break in?
Yeah. Can I come over for movie night?
What's your address?
Let me get my social out as well. No, I have an LG B6, which is one of their 2016 OLEDs. They have more OLEDs coming out this year, but I really feel like you could get last year's model on sale. I really think the OLED line that LG put out last year, pretty expensive. Mine was $1,800, and that was on sale. But I'd been saving up for something like that. I will say, if you don't have all this handy-dandy stuff, if you have your plain old boring 1080p TV and your ancient Blu-ray player, you'll be fine. You can get the normal Blu-ray, and you're going to get a lot of really good detail, because in terms of 4K, the shots are very slow and they pan nicely. So it's not like you need the 4K to see everything beautiful. But I did watch the special edition disc, which is just a normal SDR, after watching the full series, and the color washout was super noticeable on the non-HDR content. You will definitely get the bang for your buck with this. There's just not a lot of other 4K HDR stuff like this, so it's going to be the one thing you watch over and over and over. But, try and find a friend like me.
Okay, we'll come over as soon as you tell us your address. So can you watch it? It was on the BBC, so BBC America. What if you don't? Where can you stream it? is what
You
I'm
can't
asking.
nowhere. That's the
Nowhere?
thing. BBC has yet to license it for streaming. If you are in the UK, you could be part of their iPlayer system, but the United States does not have access to that beautiful. I can't remember if it's subscription or not, but if you have a VPN that gets you into the UK and you can kind of go from there, then that's a way to do it. But in terms of compared to Netflix or Amazon or any of these others that jack into smart televisions and game systems and the like, there is no streaming option yet for Planet Earth 2. And I'm sure there will be a bidding war before long for some platform holder to say, we're the only place you can see it. That streams. So we'll keep an eye out for when that happens.
Okay, we'll have to come over to your house then.
We'll make this work. We'll just hop a plane. No big deal.
Bring pizza.
We'll bring the pizza on the plane. Yeah, because let me tell you, Petaluma pizza is like the best pizza. Finally, all I hear about these days is Switch this, Zelda that, but you took some time to explore some of the other titles available right now for the Nintendo Switch. What are a few of your favorites?
So it's interesting because when you see Switch reviews, they tend to focus on the fact that there's this amazing Zelda game, which makes sense because the Zelda game is like 80 to 100 to 120 hours. There's just a lot of Zelda to play, and that means a lot of people have been glossing over all this other stuff that's come out. Well, that's the thing about a new Nintendo system is what else you got? The Wii U was really bad with this. Its opening couple of months had some third-party games that nobody bought, nobody wanted. In fact, Ubisoft was famous about saying all they put out in the original Wii U era made no money and they bailed. Well, right now people are buying games for the Switch because they're doing a totally different strategy. This is not a system where you go to the store and see a bazillion pieces of software. This is one where you go into their online shop and find a bunch of really good $10 to $15 to $20, some $40 games. I really am enjoying this because I feel like the Switch is very distinct. It's not a shooter system. It's not a Uncharted or Tomb Raider style AAA adventure system for the most part, although Zelda certainly hits that bill. It's a system that's really good portably, has a really nice screen, is really great with elaborate 2D old school stuff, and perfectly fine with some 3D weird stuff. So the games that have fit that bill, and they scratch my particular itch, retro-y things. So example, Bomberman was a series that really came into its own in the 90s as a 4, 8, even 10 player sit on the couch, everybody blow each other up kind of party game. And it finally came back this March as Super Bomberman R, which looks a lot like the old one, plays a lot like the old one. And I'm so happy about that. That's all I want. I want to be able to take the Switch to a bar, prop the Switch up, the portable part, onto my little case, hand everybody a Joy-Con. They're little small controllers, easy to throw in my bag. I've got 4 of them. Boom, 4-player Bomberman at the bar. I did it last night. Really fun. Similarly, there's Snipper Clips, which is a Nintendo product. It's the it's like their small downloadable thing that they put out on launch day. And that's a 2 to 4 player game where everybody has a little Joy-Con and they are solving puzzles by cutting each other's bodies up. You're these little pieces of paper, and when you overlap over the other piece of paper and hit a button, you snip them, and you might cut a little dagger edge or a rounded edge. The rounded edge, for example, you can make like a little cup, and then, you got to get a ball from one side of the screen to the other, and you don't have any hands. So you're like cutting each other into a shape so that you can hold this ball and walk it with your body. So that's the sort of 2D, bright, colorful, slow. You can just set it down on a table and play it with friends. Shovel Knight, another one that's like that. It's very old school. Looks like an old NES game like that Capcom used to make. It's a special 3 campaign thing. There's 3 different little quests inside of it. And that is super fun. I go into great detail about exactly why. It's very Capcom-y. Blaster Master Zero also looks like an old NES game based on the Blaster Master series. I go into great detail about the nerd awesomeness that is Blaster Master. And then there's the more 3D stuff that's really interesting. Snake Pass just came out this week, and it is like a GameCube game that was lost in time in terms of it's very weird, cute, bright, colorful 3D, and novel. You wind around as this snake. And when I say wind around, I mean you have to control every single motion of the snake. And as you watch this game, if you look it up on YouTube if you can, if you have time, it is the kind where you actually have to actively move your head and your body. You have only one muscle inside of a snake, and so you're instructed to like weave your head left and right and gas yourself forward. Very trippy. It's a kind of game that is a little slow, is a little bright. perfect for a slower portable system like the 3DS. This is not PlayStation 4. It runs on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but it's not as crazy looking as like an Uncharted or a Gears of War. It just works. And oh goodness, what was it? I keep going. It's just, there's a lot of these little games that I'm really enjoying, and I have the full list in terms of what I enjoyed and how good it was on the Switch specifically. And you can check that out at Ars Technica. That's still the feature article today. I go on and on and on, but if you're just hanging out in Seattle and I'm not at my house looking at this OLED, I'm at a bar playing the Switch and hoping someone goes, "Oh, can I play that with you?" I will always say yes.
Sam, take a break from the Nintendo Switch already. You're playing too much.
Fine.
That's what it sounds like to me.
I got a 3DS right here. That's what's next.
You're not happy unless you're staring at a screen of some sort. I understand.
I'm staring at you guys. You're my favorite screen to stare at.
Screen for now. For now. To hang up, you're going to go to a different screen.
He just totally went full on dad on you, Sam. I don't know if you noticed that, but.
And I was like just pleading for his love. He's like, "Do your chores."
No, just send me a Nintendo Switch and we're all good.
Got it.
Thanks so much for joining us. Always great to get you on. Sam Machkovech from Ars Technica has a lot of awesome stuff for you to read, including that roundup of non-Zelda Nintendo Switch games. So check it out at arstechnica.com. Thanks again, Sam.
I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
All right, talk to you soon.
It's feedback time, and I've been watching the wires as feedback's coming in, so I'm going to add one more piece of feedback that relates. Stan Cook wrote in to explain, to give me a little 911, to give all of us a 911 lesson. There are two 911s, he says. One is 911 and the other is 911E. The E stands for enhanced. Enhanced works much better. Worked much better a few years ago before everyone had cell phones and landlines. What it was, each landline was tied to an address. If you called 911 and never said a thing to the dispatch, you would see your address right up front and start a patrol car heading in that direction. Today, many cell phones, including mine, are linked to 911 with my address. If I use the phone to call 911, they get my home address, even if I am not there.
Okay.
So, thus, if I can, I have to tell them where I am.
Did that like just come in?
Yeah, he just emailed me at 4:41.
Wow. That's like breaking news feedback.
Breaking news.
Breaking feedback.
Yes, and Stan is a former police officer, so he understands these things.
That's awesome. Great feedback.
So here is some more feedback. Last week we talked about how phones made by Google get security updates faster than other Android phones, and we received this voicemail, so let's take a listen to that.
Hi, guys. 1731. First off, I can't believe you didn't know what a sonic screwdriver was. But anyway, I called about the security thing, and it seems like you were talking like how wonderful Android is and Google for making all these wonderful security updates. But hey, wait a minute. I have a Nexus 5 that I bought not too long ago, and the crazy thing is, they've abandoned me. Okay, no nougat for me. All right, I can live with that. But no security patches. My patch level is still October 5, 2016. October. So it seems like they're not doing that great if they just dumped all of us Nexus 5 users. Anyway, sad, sad, sad. Don't let them get away with it.
Well, I guess the question is, how long do you provide security updates? The Nexus 5 was released or shown, unveiled October 31st, 2013. So, we're a good, almost 4 years. I guess we would be coming up on 4 years. So we're at the 3-year mark, 3.5 years-ish, right around there. And I think Google had said that it would provide up to 3 years of support, I think, or security updates. I believe. I could be wrong on that. It might be a little bit less than that. So you're right at that limit. I would love for these companies to offer security updates forever. But, that's just not practical. So I guess I kind of understand that they have to draw a line somewhere, especially companies like Samsung that have just hundreds of devices, like the teams required to keep all of those devices and to test, all of these security updates on a monthly basis. Like, it's just not practical. How far back do iOS devices get support? Do you happen to know that?
It's not a certain number of years.
It's just at some point they say
this, you can't, and then it's like, well, you don't want to put this on, this is too big for your iPhone 4.
Right.
Or, so.
Affect performance or whatever. Yeah. I mean, there has to be a line drawn in the sand somewhere. Nexus 5, I hate to see it, Nexus 5 is an old device at this point.
Yeah.
And, at some point Google has to think about the present and the future and not continue supporting their older devices.
Right. I mean, I think that his point is that, I mean, we were making the point of like, if you spend more money, you get a Google device, you're going to get the updates regularly. Yeah. But, you know, as opposed to, you know, when iOS, it's like everybody gets the update until it's like everybody except you because your phone is 6 years old.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's the same case here. The Nexus 5 did great with updates until it kind of reached that outside of that window, whatever that window was. So,
right.
Yeah, unfortunately.
We also got another piece of feedback from Matt yesterday. We were wondering how to pronounce Minnesotians, and I think
Minnesota Rubians.
Minnesotan.
Oh,
Minnesotan.
Minnesotan. I've successfully talked over both of the times that he said that.
Minnesotan. Minnesotan.
Thank you for repeating it.
Minnesotan.
Minnesotan.
Minnesotan. Minnesotan.
Okay, we get it. We get it. I'll never ever say it other than Minnesotan. Minnesotan.
Minnesotan. Minnesotan.
I think what he's telling us is that how you pronounce it is you say it twice.
Yes, yes.
So, all right. From now on.
If you want to help us pronounce things, please send videos to TNT@twit.tv.
Please do. TNT's fan of the day is James Kaler on Twitter. I believe he's been here before, who says he's, quote, watching TNT on Carnival Vista cruise ship, going to Grand Turk, La Romana in the Dominican Republic, Curacao, and Aruba. Jerk. I shall die of jealousy. That sounds like a lot of fun. But hey, the best part, watching TNT poolside. Oh, yeah. Show us how you watch. I'm glad he has his priorities straight. Seriously.
And the coffee.
Show us how you watch or listen to TNT poolside. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup. Post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. Use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT. That's how we're going to find it.
Finally, here comes that homemade Iron Man suit you've always wanted, Jason. A British entrepreneur named Richard Browning has created a metal exoskeleton suit for human flight, propelled by miniature jet engines and named after Daedalus, who you might remember is Icarus's dad. And in case you need a little brush up on your Greek mythology, Daedalus was the one who did not fly too close to the sun, although I would never, ever, ever wear this suit.
Oh, I would. I don't know if I have the muscles that would be required to wear this suit, because I have to imagine if you go about 2/3 of the way through the video, he starts. It shows the evolution over time, and then eventually you see him just like flying around with it and stuff.
It took him 10 months.
And, it actually part of it was a very, an intense exercise regimen, because, I mean, these are jets. They're jets that you have mounted to your wrists and your feet. And in order to make sure that you don't blast yourself into the wall of the barn that's right next to you, you have to be strong enough to be able to hold those suckers down when they're pushing up with so much force to lift you off the ground like you see right here. That's just incredible.
You could totally do that. You do Pilates.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe that's all that's required is a little Pilates, maybe a couple of bench presses, and you're golden.
It can fly several hundred miles per hour at thousands of feet.
If you wanted to try, I bet he's never gone several hundred miles per hour. And if so, I want to see that video. But I saw this. Padre was in the office before you got here when I saw this.
He's like, I've done that.
And I was like, no how. Come on, let's make this happen. But I mean, I was bouncing off the walls, because for some reason, this is just like the epitome of what I've always wanted. I've always wanted to be able to just like hover like that. That would be so cool.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, of course it is. And I'll probably never be able to do it, but I want to be able to. And to know that it's even possible, that's just awesome. I love it. People are so smart. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 2300 UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv. You can also leave us a short voicemail at 260-TNT-SHOW, and find us on Twitter. We're at Tech News Today TV.
Did you know that this month is Tripod? Have you heard that? TRYPOD? It's like all on the internet. People are telling other people to try different podcasts. So if you think someone should subscribe to our podcast, tweet about it, and then with the hashtag Tripod, TRYPOD. And if you haven't subscribed, why not? Go to twit.tv/TNT. And if you want to tweet at me, I'm at Megan Maroney.
And I'm at Jason Howell. Thanks to Kara behind the controls. Thanks to Mario for helping out in the studio. Thanks to Kevin. I think Kevin's editing the show today. Yeah, he probably
I don't think
is.
it needs to be edited. It was perfect.
Yep. Beginning to end. We're just going to put it up there in the unedited glory. But if you do edit it, Kevin, thank you for whatever you do. You don't have to do anything, but thank you anyways. And thanks to you for talking tech with us today. We'll see you all on Monday. Bye, everybody. Woohoo!
Minnesota.